is the Southern Middle Tennessee High School Football Show with your hosts Maurice, Patton, and Wade Neely. Proudly presented each week by our friends at the Tennessee Highway Safety Office. Fans, don't let fans drive drunk.
Hey, welcome into the maiden voyage of the Southern Middle Tennessee High School Football Show. I'm Maurice Patton. That's Wade Neely. We're going to be with you throughout the high school football season talking about football.
Talking a little football.
A little football. We will be talking about primarily the teams across what we call Southern Middle Tennessee, Giles, Lawrence, and Maury counties. So that will be Giles County and Richland. That will be Lawrence County, Loretto, and Summertown. That'll be Columbia Academy, Columbia Central, Independence, Mount Pleasant, Spring Hill, Summit, some Zion Christian, and some Battle Creek, the new kids in town. Now, you know, it's an interesting situation with Battle Creek because they are a new school and they are coming in the middle of a scheduling cycle, so they are only playing a junior varsity schedule this year. So our talk about the Grizzlies may be sparse, but we'll probably be working them in a little bit as well. So
we still see them out there.
Absolutely. We see y'all grinding up there in Spring Hill. And so we definitely don't want to leave them out. Zion Christian, again, playing an eight-man football and playing an eight-man schedule. So we are not quite as well versed on the Eagles as we may be on some of these other teams, but we will try to include them in the mix as well. But for the most part, we're going to be talking about teams that are playing on Friday nights.
Yep.
And there's plenty to talk about.
Yeah, absolutely. And you give us a little bit of time, and don't worry, Zion, we'll get up to speed with you guys. And you're exactly right. We got Maury County covered, Lawrence County, Giles County, even a dabble or two here in Williamson County. I mean, everything Southern Middle Tennessee related on the gridiron on Fridays. A look ahead, a look back, some predictions. We've got a little bit of everything. It's kind of a smorgasbord on this show.
It is a
kick off the 24 season.
It is a smorgasbord, and I think you're going to like it. We certainly hope you're going to like it. That is certainly the idea. As we've got plenty to talk about because both from a volume and from a quality standpoint. I mean, right there in your backyard at the Brickyard, the Bobcats, traditionally one of the tougher programs in whatever classification it is that they're in. You know, we've had Summit that has made some state championship game runs and some state championship wins. Same with Independence. You know, Columbia Central's won a state championship. Columbia Academy has threatened to do so on a few occasions. I mean, the quality of football that we're talking about around here, I mean, Loretto went undefeated during the regular season last year. The quality of football that we're talking about is just really special, and some special athletes, some special coaches, some special fan bases, and looking forward to shedding a light on all of those over these next 11 to 16 weeks.
Yeah, we've got an expansive repertoire of schools to cover. Like you said, some outstanding individuals amidst all these teams, and then some really fun fan bases. I'm excited for the season. The start of high school football season always gets the juices going, always gets you amped up, always gets you pumped up. And it's hard to believe we're already here in week one getting ready for the 24 season.
Absolutely. It gives you a little boost, a little bump, a little pep in your step, as I actually had a coach say to me at one point. So yeah, it's that time, man. We're coming to you here on this Wednesday evening, 48 hours away. Well, Not even that for some folks. I don't think we've got anybody playing on Thursday night, though. So, yeah.
Not this week. Yeah, there's going to be some big ones tomorrow night. We may get into those a little bit later in the show. But for now, all of our hopes and dreams and coverage plans are dialed up for Friday night at this moment.
We are Friday focused,
Mm-hmm.
and we're sure you are as well. So stick around. We will be right back here on the Southern Middle Tennessee High School Football Show.
He shoots, and he scores!
Hello, I'm Rick Whitley.
And I'm Daniel Pollard from Jones and Lang Sporting Goods. We would like to take this opportunity to thank all of you for the many years of support. Since 1966, Jones and Lang has been locally owned and operated and supplying teams from T-ball to college. Stop by and see what we can do for you. We offer a wide variety of services from silk screening and embroidery to our custom trophy and awards department.
We're open Monday through Friday, 8 to 5, and Saturday, 9 to noon. Remember, Jones and Lang Sporting Goods, the look of a winner.
That's right, guitars and fast cars right here in Music City. This summer, NASCAR is back at the Nashville Super Speedway. Get your tickets now to watch your favorite driver take on the 1.33 miles of concrete chaos. Visit NashvilleSuperspeedway.com to lock in your spot June 28th through the 30th for the Ally 400 race weekend.
They have always met wildest expectations as far as taking care of my teeth and my health. You know, teeth health is very important now to your heart. And I told him one day, I said, I'd love to have nice teeth and nice hair. And he said, well, I can take care of the teeth, but I can't take care of the hair. And I said, you can make my teeth? He said, yeah. I said, well, let's go for it. And he did. And I have been tremendously pleased. Dr. Hart, if you need him at night, he's here. This staff here will take care of you 24/7. You don't have to worry about, I can't get a hold of my dentist, my tooth's hurting. No, they will be here for you. And if I could get Dr. Hart to take that same artistry that he has and grow hair, then he would be double rich.
Whether you're an athlete or a weekend warrior, when it comes to your performance, don't settle for anything less than excellence. We're proud to announce that Mid-Tennessee Bone and Joint Clinic is now Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia, where we are redefining sports medicine and orthopedics. Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance's team of expert sports medicine physicians understands the unique demands of your body. TOA Columbia specializes in personalized orthopedic care, offering state-of-the-art treatments for everything from sports injuries to joint replacements. Learn more at toacolumbia.com.
Nashville Sounds Baseball is back in Hit City for the 2024 season. Spend your nights and weekends at the ballpark with weekly giveaways, fireworks shows, throwback deals, live music, and more. Top talent will take the field at First Horizon Park against the AAA Minnesota Twins, Baltimore Orioles, Atlanta Braves, St. Louis Cardinals, Cincinnati Reds, and more. Tickets start at just $10 and are available now at NashvilleSounds.com. We will see you in Hit City.
Welcome back to the Southern Middle Tennessee High School Football Show. I'm Maurice, Patton. That's Wade Neely. This segment right here will typically talk about last week's games. There weren't any games last week. There were a handful of jamborees that some of our teams were involved in, some weren't. But we will spend this time kind of getting a little familiar with some of these teams. And, now two teams that did play in a jamboree were Columbia Academy and Richland over at CA on Friday night. And both those teams, from what I understand, we had Gray Deo over there for that event. He covered the Lewis County Cornersville game as well. But I was a little stunned at the amount of time that the ball spent in the air because Blaine Woodard threw for a couple of touchdowns for the Raiders. Stephen Neves threw for a couple of touchdowns for the Bulldogs, and if that's a name that's not familiar with you, for you, stick around because it's going to be. But I was particularly surprised to hear that Richland threw for a couple of touchdowns.
Richland's offense is undergoing, or has gone the last 2 seasons now, kind of a little bit of a metamorphosis, really going from that 50-50 split to maybe a touch here on the offensive or on the aerial side of things on a week-to-week basis now. And when you lose Miller as your starting quarterback last year, you're thinking, okay, yeah, you're right. Blaine Woodard, he comes in. They're not going to throw that much with the guy that was the backup last year. And Coach Nick Patterson's kind of made a point of emphasis to get the offense kind of moving through the air. They have Luke Jones, who's a standout on the basketball team at 6'6", 6'7", maybe. He's kind of emerged as a little bit of a tight end / receiver in his first year ever playing high school football. So they've got some commitment to the offensive game through the air. You're right. So even though it may not be something you're used to seeing, I think get ready for that as the season continues for the Raiders.
Meanwhile, Columbia Academy, again, with Stephen Neves at quarterback, a transfer from Ravenwood. And if he can give the Bulldogs a little something in the passing game with the threats that they've got on the outside, just to kind of keep folks backed off, Monte Baldwin, who scared the devil out of 2,000 yards last year, may get there this time around as a senior. So it'll be interesting to watch that offense develop for the Bulldogs, I believe. Also let's stay in Giles County. Your Bobcats, always interesting.
Always interesting. This is going to be perhaps the most interesting Giles County team in a long, long time because they are gunning for 4 straight region championships. They are gunning for potentially 4 straight semifinal berths in the 3A playoffs, but they're doing so for the first time without some real elite players on their team as they lose a trio, really a quartet, if you will, of all-state caliber players in Kamari Turner, Amari Smith, Exorion Randolph, and then all-state caliber kicker / punter Chase Carden also gone. So a lot of question marks about Giles County, but as you know, very well coached, and the coaching extends into building the next crop of players. And when I talked to Bobcats head coach David O'Connor last week, he said as much. He said, hey, we kind of view that as a challenge as coaches. Yeah, we know some classes are going to be loaded more than others. It's up to us as coaches to grow that next group, though, so there's not a huge dramatic fall off. And so there is a fall off in terms of production, yes, just because they lost like 80% of their offense, 90% of their offense from last year. But a couple of new up-and-coming names and some kids who got limited reps last year, I think will keep Giles County afloat and in the mix as this season rolls along.
And if you spend time around the Giles County program, when you talk about up-and-coming names, a lot of those names you've heard before, like Randolph, for instance.
Well, yeah. Xavier Randolph is going to be an interesting quarterback for Giles County, who comes in as a sophomore after you would think he would be the backup again this year. Johnny Jackson, their quarterback, he transferred back to Bob Jones, where he had just transferred to Giles County for his junior season. So now he is gone. So, yeah, it's up to Xavier Randolph to try and right the ship for Giles County. They got a big old running back in Caleb Oates, who's a 3-year starter for Giles County at the linebacker position. But he's kind of a jackhammer back there in terms of his playmaking ability in the backfield. So they will be an interesting team, especially as the season goes on. We'll talk more about their week 1 and maybe even their week 2 or 3 matchup later in the show. But, man, they will get better every single game. Stay with them, Bobcat fans. It may not be great to start, but I think by the end of the season, your patience will be rewarded, as it usually is for Coach David O'Connor's teams.
The great thing about the Bobcats is no matter what happens, they will be in the playoffs because they play in a 4-team region. And it's a pretty far-flung
Coach T's got them with. They're in a 15. Community is also in there too.
Oh,
The scoreboard monster will get you when we're not careful. But yeah,
trust but verify.
Trust but verify. And
My
knock
bad.
on wood, Giles County has not lost a region game in their 3 years in the region since moving down to 3A ball. So you would assume, that they're going to continue that trend. They're going for another championship. It'll be interesting to see how that happens this year.
Watertown, Grundy County Community, and Sequatchie County are the other members of Region 4 3A. Community not denoted here. So,
And Sequatchie County has been knocking the last couple of years.
Mhm.
That game, the final week of the regular season on November 1st, will be very, very tricky for Giles County going on the road.
over there. Yeah.
But that will basically be your region championship game. I think most folks would tell you between those two teams.
Let's go across Highway 64. Talk a little Lawrence County. The Wildcats 4-6 this past year, just missing out on the playoffs in 5A. And you talk about knocking on the door. This team has been for a while. They have really kind of increased their physicality. They've increased their speed at the skill positions, and they have been a tough customer. They've just not really been able to get over the hump and into postseason play with Coach David Marston down there. Again, 4-6 this past year. Had a tough go in region play, but again, that physicality up front. I got a chance to see them a little bit against Mount Pleasant in the Jamboree this past weekend. They're going to give some folks some problems again this time around.
Yeah, in Lawrence County, you're right. They've kind of been trying to crawl out of a real bad situation with their program in the last couple of years, and they've been slowly trudging forward in the right direction. Maybe this is the year that they finally bust out, because last year they finally put themselves in position after a couple of really, really lean years. They had a really good quarterback last year, Jaden Trammell, who potentially is coming back as your chief signal caller in terms of throwing the football. But don't get it twisted. We don't really talk a ton about Lawrence County throwing the football. Usually they are pounding the rock, and look for guys potentially like Ian Clayton, who had a really good season for him last year. That feature back, that bell cow back. I think if Lawrence County can duplicate a couple of early wins like they had last season, maybe a few of those region games that they lost late or lost on the road can swing in their favor this year. Maybe this is the year that Lawrence County cracks the code and gets back in the playoffs.
Yeah, Cale Scott was under center in that Jamboree, and as you said, Ian Clayton looked good. I tell you what, though, look out for the receiver, Gage Smith, as well. He's a playmaker for him on both sides of the ball. Loretto went 10-0 in the regular season, won the Region 5-2A championship, and then, along with the other three playoff participants from that region, fell in the opening round of the state playoffs. I feel like the Mustangs are coming into 2024 with a score to settle.
Yeah, talk about a team that is amped up, ready to go. I think they, in a weird way, I think they caught some teams by surprise last year in the sense that they knew they were going to be good. They just didn't know they were going to be 10-0 type good. Right. And the Mustangs come out, and especially, Mount Pleasant had some injury issues as the season went along last year, but that was an absolute Donnybrook between those two teams, 56-52, only for the record to scratch and the music to stop the next week when they get eliminated in the opening round of the playoffs. And as bad as that stings, I think you're onto something. You may be right. They may be coming even more with a vengeance this year after such an unfortunate demise in the first round last season.
Absolutely. And I think they played with some young kids last year that really give them a chance to up the ante this time around. Looking forward to that. Summertown had a coaching change late last season. Well, not last season, but right at the start of the preseason last year, and didn't quite get into the groove like they would have liked to. It'll be interesting with a year under said coach, how things go for the Eagles this time around.
I think so. And I talked to Dan Winfrey 2 weeks ago, kind of getting a lay of the land for his team. And he said, you know what? Hey, we were just scrambling last year, trying to figure things out, trying to learn the kids' names, trying to figure out how to put the playbook in. This year, he said, you know what? I know the kids' names. The kids know each other's names. They know my name. This process is a heck of a lot easier in year 2 than it was in year 1 when I got hired 10 days right before the start of the season or however close it was. So the familiarity factor alone should prove useful for Summertown. And the other interesting thing is, he said, you know, we may not win a lot of games this year or may not win as many as we hope, but I think you're going to see continued improvement. And most importantly, we took some teams deep into ball games last year that ultimately ended in losses. All we have to do is finish the fourth quarter in some of those games, and we're right back in business and we're right back in the winning column.
Absolutely. Columbia Central boasting Indiana commit Jaravius Hall in the middle of their defense at defensive tackle. The Lions looking to improve on a 7-4 season and a first round out in the Class 5A state playoffs last year up at Centennial. They've got a lot to work with this time around under second-year coach Tradarius Goff.
Seems like Columbia has been building in the right direction, and wanted to get your take on them because last year, it seems like they kind of caught a few teams by surprise with how well they were playing. You could see the talent bubbling below the surface, and it seemed like Coach Goff and his staff got a lot out of them last year. I'm curious your thoughts about them heading into this fall.
I think, again, with a year under his belt and them with a year with him, I think upward mobility is there for the Lions this time around. South Williamson, we've got Independence and Summit both playing in Region 6-6A. Both have struggled, relatively speaking, here over the last couple of years. Again, Summit having made 3-year state championship appearances, and they kind of dropped off a little bit. Independence has struggled a little bit more. Both of them looking to get back up, but Ravenwood and Brentwood are looming there in that region. So going to be a little bit of a tough go for them this time around.
Sure feels like it. Covered several of those games last year as part of our Thursday night football broadcasts on Main Street Media Radio, and my goodness, that was last year at least a loaded region. And you're used to, at least I'm used to covering Giles County. Their big games are in the non-region. It's one thing when your toughest games of the season are also the most important in terms of your playoff chances. So, man, that is a tough shake, and you hope that Independence, you hope that Summit, you hope those teams can really kind of start trending in the right direction because we've seen the success before, and it feels like it doesn't take a lot to really get them back in that direction where they were having such success. But we got to kind of start seeing a little bit, maybe hopefully this year is that breakout year.
Absolutely. Mount Pleasant, as you mentioned, dealt with some injuries last year. They had some offensive losses from that team, so they're going to be pretty defensively oriented, particularly early on this year. Ditto for Spring Hill. The Raiders struggled are well documented. Ben Martin trying to get them moving in the right direction, but that's a tough region 5-5A to do so in. So going to be interesting to see what the Raiders are able to put together in particular this time around. They did have a quarterback, Cordell Isaac, who looked pretty solid against Centennial in the Jamboree this past weekend. So we'll keep an eye on the Raiders for sure. We'll be keeping an eye on all of these teams when we come back on the Southern Middle Tennessee High School Football Show. Stay with us.
Piggly Wiggly, located in Neely's Mill Shopping Center, is Columbia's locally owned and operated Cost Plus 10 grocery store dedicated to serving the community with low prices and smiling faces. Piggly Wiggly offers fresh, hand-cut meats daily as well as daily hot plate lunches from their deli counter. You're certain to see smiling faces and a helping hand when you're here at Piggly Wiggly. Come by and check out our fresh produce, high-quality meats, and more. Down home, down the street, we'll see you at the Pig.
Having a good, confident smile and being able to portray that positivity to others is really helpful.
A professional family atmosphere is what we get every time we come here.
Our hygienists do a better job at kind of assessing mouths and coming up with plans than most dentists do.
They're very kind and they're very aware of other people.
I think if there's things that I would want you to leave here with, I want you to feel like you were heard, that we listened to you, and I want you to feel like that your concerns were addressed.
Hello, I'm Rick Whitley.
And I'm Daniel Pollard from Jones and Lang Sporting Goods. We would like to take this opportunity to thank all of you for the many years of support. Since 1966, Jones and Lang has been locally owned and operated and supplying teams from T-ball to college. Stop by and see what we can do for you. We offer a wide variety of services from silk screening and embroidery to our custom trophy and awards department.
We're open Monday through Friday, 8 to 5, and Saturday, 9 to noon. Remember, Jones and Lang Sporting Goods, the look of a winner.
Custom Stone Handlers supplies over 600 distributors and suppliers with quality stone products. Along with River Stone, we produce and distribute over 100 building, landscape, and other bulk products. Our goal is to provide quality products, service, and partnerships to ensure our customers' success. We firmly believe that the measure of any person or company is how they treat other people and customers. Give them a call at 931-490-4990 or visit CustomStonehandlers.com.
Nashville Sounds Baseball is back in Hit City for the 2024 season. Spend your nights and weekends at the ballpark with weekly giveaways, fireworks shows, throwback deals, live music, and more. Top talent will take the field at First Horizon Park against the AAA Minnesota Twins, Baltimore Orioles, Atlanta Braves, St. Louis Cardinals, Cincinnati Reds, and more. Tickets start at just $10 and are available now at NashvilleSounds.com. We will see you in Hit City.
He shoots, and he scores!
Welcome back to the Southern Middle Tennessee High School Football Show. That's Wade Neely. I'm Maurice Patton, getting you ready for week one on the gridiron this weekend. And starting with, man, these two teams play thrillers. Columbia Academy going over to Middle Tennessee Christian. They opened the season with a 33-31 triple overtime battle last year. They closed the year with a 35-27 clash. Both of those went the way of the Cougars, the latter in the Division IIA state semifinals. Middle Tennessee Christian followed up with a championship win over Friendship Christian. So Columbia Academy kind of feeling like they're about 12 points away from a state championship.
Yeah, that's got to be frustrating, right? You start the season off with the triple overtime, and then you end the season painfully in the playoffs, and you're sitting there watching the following week saying, not only could that be us, that should be us, is the way you're thinking that. Because, man, two absolute thrillers, like you said, two nail-biters between those squads.
Yeah, I mean, two.
And not sure who's in charge of putting the schedule together the way it panned out this year. I assume it's just a carryover from last year, but, man, what a setup coming into week one.
That's a great setup for both these teams.
Yeah.
I mean, because, again, Columbia Academy going in there, it's not going to take any motivation to get them ready for this ball game. And I don't think Christian Peterson will have any problem getting his guys focused because, again, you had to go triple overtime to beat these guys last year. You beat them by a touchdown the second time. So you know that there's no room for any slippage in this one. Again, we talked about Monte Baldwin. We're going to talk about Monte Baldwin a lot over the course of this season because he rushed for 1,960 yards last year, scored 25 touchdowns. He was a Division IIA Mr. Football semifinalist, and I would expect him to be that at the very least again this time around.
Sure feels like it. And, I can remember sending you articles a couple of years ago, typing up box scores. And I was like, man, this freshman Baldwin, he's getting some touches. And they're not very great. But, man, if you keep giving the freshmen some carries, keep kind of feeding the program, some good things will happen. And we saw the fruits of that labor last year with Baldwin erupting individually and then Columbia Academy, as we mentioned, getting right there on the precipice. Maybe this year, with an extra year of seasoning, we'll see them kick the door through.
Absolutely. If you are a high school football fan in Columbia, you may have to travel Friday night to go see somebody because Columbia Central is also on the road. They are going over to Marshall County, the Lions 7-4. Last year, Marshall County coming in at 10-3 a year ago, advancing to the Class 4A state semifinals. Quarterfinals, excuse me. But Central has struggled in this matchup. They have played Marshall County in the last 3 season openers, and they've lost all 3 of them. So going to Lewisburg in a get-right situation might not be the easiest thing to do.
No, this is going to be tricky. And, points were at a premium in last year's contest is 16-0. But Marshall County had really put up some big numbers offensively the last couple of seasons. However, it does feel like Marshall County losing some pieces offensively, especially at the quarterback position. Maybe this is a chance for Coach Goff and for the Lions using a strong defense, taking advantage of Marshall County, maybe finding its legs offensively. Maybe this is another low-scoring affair, and maybe this time this one breaks in favor of the Lions in Week 1.
Also, Friday night, Oakland comes into this game and they open the season as state runners up in 6A, the first time in 4 years that has been the case. Falling to Houston last year, 24-9 in the state finals down in Chattanooga, finishing off a 12-3 season. Independence 5-6 a year ago. This is an Independence team that, one, is going to be kind of defensively oriented, and 2, does not have a whole lot of notoriety individually. Not a lot of names to really hang your hat on with this Independence team, but third-year coach Scott Stidham kind of feels like there's strength in numbers and big team, little me, and all that stuff. So
yeah, I mean, this is potentially a perfect situation then, right? Oakland comes in. Well, maybe I'll take that back. There's never a perfect situation to take on Oakland, especially when they're coming in, a little ticked off at the way the last season ended. However, the recipe for beating them, unless you have the studs to match them, which almost no team in Middle Tennessee certainly has, the only other way to really do that is by buying in, using that team ball, using that team concept, and kind of chipping away, hey, they bleed like we bleed, go old school Rocky on them. I mean, this is a chance for Independence. Talk about a massive way to start your season if you can pull off a dub at home Friday night.
No question. Speaking of a massive way to start off your season, Spring Hill traveling to Summit. The Raiders coming off a 2-8 finish last year. Summit 5-7 with a win in the opening round of the 6A playoffs after, kind of struggling a little bit early on. But the Raiders, they just need some confidence, man, something to hang their hat on. And it's going to be interesting to see how they go about gaining that.
Yeah, I'm glancing through some previous results. Got to go all the way back to 2017, last time Spring Hill knocked these guys off. And, man, you're right. Spring Hill's in that spot. They just need something to go right. And then when it does, hopefully just spin it up and hopefully just get something to go. Little victories here, little victories there. And then look back at the end of the season and maybe, holy cow, we had a lot to be proud of.
Absolutely.
If you try and get it all back at the very beginning and in one fell swoop, I don't like where that scenario will take you. But if you can stack little victories, that's the methodology for Spring Hill in my book this season.
I think you're right. Summit coming back with Mason McElhaney at quarterback, who put up right at 2,000 offensive yards in his first year as a starter. So looking forward to seeing what he can do in year 2 as QB1. Mount Pleasant officially christens its new artificial surface Friday night when Wayne County comes to town. And these Wildcats should be a little less of a challenge than the Wildcats they saw last week in their jamboree against Lawrence County. Mount Pleasant's got some questions offensively, but that defense, which they're coached by a defensively minded coach in Kid Hartsfield, and I think that's where he wants his team to hang its hat anyway. But I think this defense is going to be solid and if not stellar, and keep Mount Pleasant in games on a regular basis. And against a 1A program like Wayne County that went 4-6 last year, I think there is an opportunity for Mount Pleasant to get off to a good start right here.
Yeah, I like what you just said. Get off, taking on a 1A program to start, playing at home. You know, the crowd will be fired up. But most importantly, relying on a good defense. Sometimes having a good defense early in the season is way more critical. You can build the offense up as the year goes along. More on that with another team on our list later. But that is the recipe that I would prefer, and it sounds like that's the recipe that Coach Hartsfield and his team have at Mount Pleasant.
Yeah. If there is a headliner in Southern Middle Tennessee for week 1, and if it's not Columbia Academy at Middle Tennessee Christian, then it is likely Giles County making the trip up I-65 to take on the Page Patriots. The Page Patriots who have been in each of the last 3 Class 5A state championship games.
Yeah, going to be another slobber knocker, as they say, between these two old school rivals from back in the day. And you go back to last season, 35-34, Page wins it at the Brickyard in Pulaski in overtime. And Giles County got better as the season went along. Page got better as the season went along. I think that will be a similar case coming up Friday night this week. I don't think we'll see the best Giles County team all season. I don't think we'll see the best Page all season. But I think both of these teams will use this game and probably get better. And it will be fascinating to see because Page certainly seems like it returns a little bit more, especially on the defensive side of the ball. And we've talked earlier in this show that Giles County's offense has got a lot of question marks. So that would give me an early lean toward Page. But these two longtime rivals, we shall see what happens up in Rudderville Friday night.
And two longtime rivals. They were both in the same region at one time. I mean, I don't know that you ever really know what to expect out of this ball game. 35-34 in overtime last year kind of indicates that further. So might be worth the price of admission, this one here up in Rudderville. Your other team out of North Giles County, the Richland Raiders, traveling to the pit, taking on the Falcons of Lincoln County. And Lincoln County's got a quarterback that is apparently drawing a little bit of attention, Maddox Franklin. And he may be the difference for this Falcons team that has struggled here over the past few years. Both Richland and Lincoln County 3-7 last year. This, again, particularly with the new offensive approach that the Raiders are rolling out, could see the ball in the air quite a bit in this one.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a fun game. And kind of like last year, Lincoln County scores and goes up late in the ball game, wins it 28-27 because Richland scores even later and goes for 2, comes up empty. So Linville was devastated that night as their famous alumnus Eddie Cunningham came in and stole the victory that night. Now they get to go on the road to the pit. To me, this is the game that we learn more about Richland than we learn about Lincoln County. Lincoln County's playing at home. They're a 5A team playing a 1A program. I mean, realistically, this should be heavily in Lincoln County's favor. You're exactly right. Maddox Franklin is improved and is going to be, I mean, he could rewrite every record passing-wise if things broke a certain way at Lincoln County, which is certainly saying something now.
It's certainly saying something because earlier or here recently we were talking about Lincoln County quarterbacks, and they've sent a couple over to our alma mater in Kelly Holcomb and Shelby Parker. So if you're telling me that Maddox Franklin is going to rewrite the passing record books at Lincoln County, that's not to be taken lightly.
Not to be taken lightly. You know, some of that's a function of just having played so many reps, starting basically since he was a freshman. He already holds the school's all-time three-point record, but just because, again, same deal. He's played every game since he was a freshman. And so that on paper kind of tells the tale. This is Richland's game to maybe spring the upset. And if they do, folks in Lincoln County will be really, really beside themselves, I think. But this is Richland's chance to go out and prove what they're about. Still be a fun game in the pit on Friday night.
Absolutely. Fun game at Summertown when Lawrence County rolls into town. The Wildcats, again, 4-6 last year. Summertown 1-9 under first-year coach Dan Winfrey. And, you know, when you talk about, again, Lawrence County being a 5A program, Summertown being a 2A program, it's really a young 2A program. Lawrence County should handle their business here, but this is, you know, to echo what you just said about Richland and Lincoln County, this is a game where you can find out a lot about the Eagles and how far they have come in this year under Dan Winfrey.
The parallels between these two games are eerily similar because we saw Lawrence County defeat Summertown by a touchdown last year, and you're thinking, oh man, so glad Lawrence County didn't get embarrassed by losing to Summertown. But keep in mind, Lawrence County was a school that needs the wins. They need the momentum, right? Same deal with Lincoln County. They go on the road, they beat Richland. You don't really feel great about going on the road and surviving versus a 1A program, but guess what? You need the wins. You need the momentum. Now we're in year 2 of this situation, this arrangement, if you will. Summertown has had a couple of close meetings versus Lawrence County, have never been able to quite pull off the big upset. And after last season, we'll see if they can keep it closer this year.
Finally, Loretto opens its home slate against visiting Collinwood. You'd like to think that the Mustangs again take care of business after their frustrations at the end of last year. So those are our games. When we come back, Wade and I are going to make some predictions. Stay tuned.
He shoots, and he scores!
Hello, I'm Rick Whitley.
And I'm Daniel Pollard from Jones and Lang Sporting Goods. We would like to take this opportunity to thank all of you for the many years of support. Since 1966, Jones and Lang has been locally owned and operated and supplying teams from T-ball to college. Stop by and see what we can do for you. We offer a wide variety of services from silk screening and embroidery to our custom trophy and awards department.
We're open Monday through Friday, 8 to 5, and Saturday, 9 to noon. Remember, Jones and Lang Sporting Goods, the look of a winner.
Custom Stone Handler supplies over 600 distributors and suppliers with quality stone products. Along with River Stone, we produce and distribute over 100 building, landscape, and other bulk products. Our goal is to provide quality products, service, and partnerships to ensure our customers' success. We firmly believe that the measure of any person or company is how they treat other people and customers. Give them a call at 931-490-4990 or visit CustomStonehandlers.com.
Whether you're an athlete or a weekend warrior, when it comes to your performance, don't settle for anything less than excellence. We're proud to announce that Mid-Tennessee Bone and Joint Clinic is now Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia, where we are redefining sports medicine and orthopedics. Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance's team of expert sports medicine physicians understands the unique demands of your body. TOA Columbia specializes in personalized orthopedic care, offering state-of-the-art treatments for everything from sports injuries to joint replacements. Learn more at toacolumbia.com.
Nashville Sounds Baseball is back in Hit City for the 2024 season. Spend your nights and weekends at the ballpark with weekly giveaways, fireworks shows, throwback deals, live music, and more. Top talent will take the field at First Horizon Park against the AAA Minnesota Twins, Baltimore Orioles, Atlanta Braves, St. Louis Cardinals, Cincinnati Reds, and more. Tickets start at just $10 and are available now at NashvilleSounds.com. We will see you in Hit City.
The Southern Middle Tennessee High School Football Show continues with Wade Neely and Maurice Patton, and it's tough making predictions in week one because you've got so little really to go off of. That said, we're going to try to do it anyway.
We'll do our best, right?
We will give it the old college try. Let's start where we started in the last segment with Columbia Academy going over to Middle Tennessee Christian. Suddenly a big rivalry game, I feel like, again, given how both of last year's games went. And again, the Bulldogs have probably had this game circled. Middle Tennessee Christian should be fully focused, should be a great ball game. What are your thoughts?
My thought immediately was, man, I sure wish this was later in the season where I got a little bit better idea of what these two teams are about.
Mm-hmm.
But you know what? We talked about Monte Baldwin and how good he has become in his first couple of seasons with Columbia Academy and what's potentially still to come for him. At the end of the day, Columbia Academy is desperate for a win. I was initially leaning MTCS, but man, give me Columbia Academy desperate for a win versus these guys, and maybe you just ride Baldwin enough, and maybe he's a player that could go nuclear, and all it takes sometimes is a player to go berserk. And give me Baldwin, give me Columbia Academy on the road with the upset to start us off.
I like the berserk factor in this one. I like Monte Baldwin, and I like what we've heard early on about Stephen Neves and his ability to maybe keep a defense just honest enough to allow Monte to go berserk. Yeah, I like Columbia Academy on the road in this one as well. Call us crazy. We've been called worse. Columbia Central at Marshall County. You mentioned last year Marshall County came to Lindsey Nelson Stadium, defeated the Lions 16-0 in Tredarius Goff's coaching debut. This time, he and the Lions have a year under their belt. They're going on the road, though, to Lewisburg, and those guys don't lose a whole lot at their place. Now, they are starting a first-year quarterback in junior Tyler Thompson, but that's not necessarily been a hindrance to the Tigers in the past. So, again, Marshall County always tough at home.
Marshall County tough at home. Columbia Central, I think if this game, give me one more season of seeing Columbia Central do it with Coach Goff, and then I'd be willing to give them a road win to start the year. I don't know that they're quite there just yet. This will be a close game, I think. This will be a battle. Marshall County with the question marks at quarterback. They do inherit quite a bit of talent. They also inherit one of the most explosive eighth graders in the history of Giles County at Bridgeforth, in terms of Dalen Gardner, who is transferred to Marshall County. So a nice shiny toy for Coach Osteen and that bunch there. So they have some talent, and that talent enough sometimes is enough to disguise the deficiencies of starting a first-year quarterback. I think Marshall County wins the game, and I think they get better as the season goes along as well. I think it'll be close, though.
I think both these teams get better as the season goes along. I think it will be close. I do think Marshall County wins it as well.
One of those I wish this would be played like week 10, and we can really see what these two teams are about.
Absolutely. Oakland, a year removed from three-time defending Class 6A state champion Oakland, and I wonder how much of a factor that will be when they roll into Thompson Station Friday night to take on the Independence Eagles, coming off a 5-6 season last year.
If you're an Independence fan, maybe tune out for the next 15 seconds because I feel like Oakland is on a little bit of a revenge tour. What talent they do bring back is certainly going to have a little axe to grind, and Independence, hopefully they show up. Hopefully they play well. keep it close, but I feel like Oakland goes on the road and gets a big win to start us off.
I think Oakland is probably going to have the two best players on the field in Southern Cal commit Dawn Maurice and T.T. Hill, who's transferring back to the Patriots after spending the past year at Brentwood Academy. And I think the two of those guys combined are going to create some problems that, even as solid defensively as Independence is going to be over the course of the year, I don't think they're going to be able to match up this time around. I've got the Patriots on the road in this one. Spring Hill goes to Summit. The Raiders looking for their first win in this series, as you mentioned, since 2017. Summit was not great last year, but they were and are better than Spring Hill. And I just think that offensively, from the offensive line to quarterback, Mason McElhaney and a couple of playmakers on defense, I think Summit's just going to be a little bit better on both sides of the ball than Spring Hill. I've got the Spartans in this one.
I'm right there with you. Spring Hill and Summit. I'd like to see this game next year. If Spring Hill puts together a little positivity this year, I think next year I would be comfortable picking them, but I can't in good faith go against Summit at home right now. I think Spring Hill does improve, but right now, week 1, give me Summit.
Absolutely. Wayne County at Mount Pleasant. Again, mentioned Mount Pleasant played 5A Lawrence County in the Jamboree last week. It was 7-6. I think they're going to benefit from punching down this week against a 1A Wayne County Wildcat squad. And again, Mount Pleasant's offense isn't right now where it's going to be mid-season, late season. But I think this defense is going to give them, enough to kind of lean on until the offense gets there, certainly to win this one.
I'm with you. Give me Mount Pleasant. I like the factor of playing the 1A team. Get a little confidence going. Maybe get the easy, I'm not going to say easy dub, but you get a fairly less than difficult victory to start your season. Be fascinated to see how Mount Pleasant potentially uses this win, who I'm taking this week, to springboard them for the rest of the year.
Absolutely. Again, perusing through this schedule this week, this one really looks like the granddaddy of them all. Giles County going 2-page. Longtime rivalry. Giles County has established itself as one of the best in the state in 3A. Page with 3 straight Class 5A state championship appearances and 3 straight silver balls, establishing themselves as one of the best in the state in 5A. But this Page team, again, 3 silver balls. And there is a faction of fans in that fan base that don't remember where Page has come from. Because, talking to Charles Rathbone, he got some messages and some emails and that kind of thing last year that clearly reflect that some folks have forgotten their reason a little bit. But there's some frustration with getting to 3 consecutive state championship games and coming up empty each time around. I don't know how these players react to that frustration, particularly in a non-region game that's as big as this one. I think there's going to be a lot of emotion in this ball game, and I'll be interested to see how that impacts and plays out. Because again, Giles County took it on the chin last year as well. And, having to fight past Alcoa has been a little bit of a struggle for them as well. So both these teams have kind of, they've seen the agony and the ecstasy, I mean, they've had some great seasons and they've had them end not the way they want them to. So I think this is going to be an interesting ball game. I'm taking, on the basis of being at home, and that's it, I'm taking the Patriots in this one.
Everything you just said is accurate, and Paige is going to be ready for this game. I give them the lean. First of all, no prediction for me, as I'll be broadcasting O.J. Simpson style. But if I did offer a prediction, it would be I lean toward the Paige Patriots only because their defense is so much better and so much more established. Giles County's defense could morph into what Paige's defense is now in a year or two. They've got some really good players defensively that are freshmen and sophomores or sophomores and juniors. Paige has got a couple of the best to ever do it in school history, and Eric Hazard, who's going to go to Louisville, and then they got Brendan Ains, who's going to Wisconsin. I mean, they got some deep position players on the defensive side of the ball. And in our opening segment, what did we talk about? A lot of questions about Giles County's offense. If this were later in the year, Giles County may be establishing some of those questions or answering some of those questions. I'd like their chances. And again, so no pick, but if I were to pick one, I definitely would be leaning toward the Patriots because they are the more seasoned of these teams.
You make a good point in that Paige defense against a young quarterback in particular.
Don't like that. I saw that same script 2019, Giles County went up there. They didn't have a quarterback at the time. Che McElroy was an elite running back for them, but they had no quarterback, and Paige absolutely throttled them. Giles County scored with like 30 seconds left in the game to avoid being shut out. I don't know that it gets to that level, but Paige has got a really great defense against an inexperienced Bobcat offense.
When's the last time David O'Connor was shut out?
I looked it up then. Unfortunately, this offense is going to be shaky to start, so I'll probably have to look it up this season. But you got to go quite a ways, I do believe.
I would figure. Richland at Lincoln County. Again, we've talked about, Blaine Woodard. We've talked about Maddox Franklin. This is going to be kind of a quarterback-driven game in a quarterback-driven sport. The Pit, first of all, let's just say, the Pit is not what we grew up with.
Mm-hmm.
And part of that is because Lincoln County hasn't been what we grew up with. But I feel like Lincoln County playing at home against a 1A team, that should be enough for the Falcons to get the win. Now, what does Richland have to do to prevent that? Can they prevent that?
Richland needs to cash in on any and all turnovers. They have an opportunistic defense in terms of Jaden Pryor coming back, who's now finally a senior. Feels like this kid's been a part of the team for the last decade. If they can turn turnovers into points, that's the recipe for Richland. Does Lincoln County give them the opportunity to possess the ball extra times with those turnovers? I lean Lincoln County in this game. I hope it's a close game because last year's was a slobber knocker, and it led both teams, I think, to elevated success later in the season. I'm hoping for a similar forecast. I'm taking the Falcons, though. Eddie Cunningham 2 in a row versus Alma Mater this week.
Yeah, I think it's tough. Much as you'd like to take the Raiders in this one, it'd be tough to do so. Excuse me. Lawrence County at Summertown. I feel like the Eagles in year 2 under Dan Winfrey have made some improvements, will continue to make some improvements. I don't know that they've made enough to close the gap and get a dub on the home field against the Wildcats.
Feels like Lawrence County is ready to potentially take the next step even further. I know they lost a decent amount of talent from last year's squad that went 4-6. The real question is Summertown. They sound like they're going to run some option. We know Lawrence County is prone to run some option. Let's see who runs the ball better. And I would favor Lawrence County. If it's close, look out for Summertown down the road in this season. And if it's close, Lawrence County, they could be in for a world of pain later this season. This will be an early indication into both of these teams' seasons.
I'll tell you what, you talk about Lawrence County and the run game. I think they're going to throw it
more
just
than ever.
And I think that's going to be more problematic for Summertown, just because if they can keep people in front of them, I think that's going to be fine. But when Lawrence County goes up top, it's going to be tough.
True.
Loretto, again, 10-1, very motivated. I like them in this one against Collinwood.
No disrespect to the Trojans. Give me Loretto playing at home.
Absolutely. That's going to do it for the Southern Middle Tennessee High School Football Show. We will see you guys next week.
This is the Southern Middle Tennessee High School Football Show with your hosts, Maurice Patton and Wade Neely. Proudly presented each week by our friends at the Tennessee Highway Safety Office. Fans, don't let fans drive drunk.